look at this subject. In our last section, we looked at strategy, its nature, and some definitions. And we saw there that strategy originally was exclusively used in military circles. But now it is being used universally in the business world, in everyday life, so to speak. But in this section, we continue to look at strategy to some extent in its application. And just as a recap, some strategic approaches. Strategy, as we said, is a vehicle that takes us from point A to point B, or from one area or one point to the next. In other words, strategy, the questions among the many that we're asking is, where do we want to be in the next few years or in the next few months? How best can we get to that point? And what are the things that we must start doing now? And the steps that you put in place, the gadgets or the routes or the schemes that you use to get that place, is those are what are known as strategies. And I must mention here that strategies are never fixed. Of course, we looked at the traditional kind of fixed kind of strategy, but now more and more people are saying strategy is never constant. It is changing because the environment outside the organization in which the organization operates is also a dynamic, turbulent, and volatile situation. And we must also quick to say that there are different types of strategies. There are at least maybe 2 or 3. The first one is called what we call the corporate strategy. This is the overarching strategy. It is the strategy that is the main strategy, if you like. All other strategies fit in to this corporate strategy. In other words, if it's a multinational company, if it's working in different countries, the organization will have what we call a corporate strategy for the whole organization. Where does it want to go? What type of image does it want to portray? How does it want to be known? That is the corporate strategy. And usually the chief executive and his people ensure that all other strategies that are formulated fit into this strategy. It's more or less like the hand in glove. Well, but also we must say that there's another area, another kind of strategy, and that's called the business strategy. You'll recall that as organizations operate, as they do their business, they're doing different kinds of things. And they might opt to do one kind of business or the other business, or they might have a number of businesses. And each business line item, or would I say business line, has got its own strategy. That is what is known as business strategy. But also there are technical strategies, or strategies that are at technical level. Strategies that will help the organization to operate and plow and do all those things efficiently and arrive at the desired haven, or where it's supposed to go. But we must go on to look at quickly at what is it that makes some businesses tick. When you arrive in that environment, in that building, in that office, you see that there's a lot of order, there's a lot of harmony, and they are making progress, and they are, their market share is increasing, and things like that. And you begin to wonder, what is it that makes that organization to be cohesive, to stick together, and to make sure that it is moving as one man? It is moving as a united front, and it is winning. Well, organizations, as we have said, if those who strategic organizations are known as winning organizations, they're not just content to have the fine kind of plans, all the strands that are there, but the organization ensures that it actualizes. It actively is involved, and it ensures that the strategies work. Remember, strategy is just a vehicle towards an end. In other words, it's a means to an end. Organizations operate like the human body. As I'm talking, if you notice carefully, my hands seem to be helping me in my communication. My legs, my bloodstream, my eyes, everything is summoned to do this one thing. And organizations that are strategic, those that have strategic leadership, operate like the body, the human body, if you recall, has two systems that are working at the same time. There is the autonomous system, but there is also the reflective, or the system where you are conscious. The autonomous system is always functioning away quietly, whether we know it or not. It never goes on strike. The heart, for instance, has never stopped beating from the time that you and I were born. But also, you notice that the blood is always flowing in our veins. When there is a problem, maybe you've cut yourself, the blood platelets come in, you unconsciously, but they come in and close up, unless, of course, you suffer from some illness. But you notice that the hair grows without your consent. It changes color even. The eyes, the legs, the limbs, all those are part of your body. They grow and develop. The cells, meiosis or mitosis, takes place, and that's why we are growing every day. That, dear friend, is marvelous. The psalmist in Psalm 139 marvels how that God has created the human body, and he marvels at the end of the day and says, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. All these things are too lofty for me to understand. I think I agree with the psalmist. But more than that, the body also has, the conscious kind of system where if I want to move my hand this way, my hand will obey. If I want to move my finger will obey. Everything about me is there because I am doing it willingly and volitionally. So there's a way in which the body is, I do things consciously. I use my mind, I decide to do this, I decide not to do that because my mind is at work. That's what we're saying. But these two parallel systems are all working in the body. They're doing their function. They are working away, hour after hour, minute after minute, year after year. Our bodies are functioning. But when your body begins to have a malfunction, there's an indicator. Your blood pressure perhaps goes up, or your temperature goes up, and this and that. If you have a cancer, it begins to grow not proportionate according to the body, wherever the cancer might be. A cancer is just basically an overgrowth of cells. The cells have just gone berserk, and they are multiplying at a faster rate, and because they are all defective. That's what happens when an organization loses focus. But we are just using the human body to just give you a picture of the ideal winning organization. It moves together as one cohesive front, and it seeks to make progress. I wonder, the organization where you're working, whether it is successful. What is it that makes a successful business, a successful company, a successful individual? Those people that you admire, those that seem to make...
Welcome again to our discussion of strategy. Strategy, as we put it last time, in the last section, is a very, very important, the all-important subject, which we allude to whether consciously or unconsciously, advertently or inadvertently. And in a way, there is no escaping from this word. And if you recall the last section that we had, we did not complete in describing the ideal or the winning organization. And if you recall, we did say that sometimes you go into these organizations, or you visit certain homes, or you visit certain places. The first impression that you see when you arrive in those places is that there is order, there is organization, there is progress, and somehow things seem to be working very well. It is almost like glove in hand. In other words, that organization or those individuals are so organized and so developed that they operate as one force, as it were. And we ask the question, what is it that makes them tick? What is it that makes them so different? that today people would turn to such organizations. Most of us in Zambia, when we are talking about ideal situations, we are thinking of those multinational organizations, those organizations that come from abroad and they have their refined systems. They have a lot of money and they seem to go from strength to strength. And they are making progress by leaps rather than by steps. By leap forward, by many steps as it were. And they grow from strength to strength. But if you were to go and find out the genesis or the beginning of those organizations, you would discover that at one time they too were small, insignificant corner organizations or shops, as it were. If you have heard of ShopRite, for instance, many of us think ShopRite has always been that great and magnificent shop that we see in Zambia. And many of us are even afraid to venture into the retail shopping or, business and so forth, because we have the great shops like ShopRite, Barnett's, and all these other things. But when you go and study their history, a little over 40 or 50 years ago, they were small tuntembas. And to some extent, where they come from, they're not as great and big as they appear in Zambia. What is the key? It is because those that formed them had a vision, a strategic vision. Those people had, if I may put it, they had a goal in mind. And they said, one day, I want this little cantemba of mine, this little shop, to outlive me and to grow big and great. ShopRite today stands as a multinational shop, excellent and admired by all of us. Today, ShopRite has made a fortune in Zambia. It has its greatest market share in Zambia. It has, according to what we hear,
if you don't have leaders, you can have all the resources that you would ever need. You can have the financial muscle, you can have the buildings, you can have everything, you can even have large workforce, and yet go from bad to worse. Why? It is because the leadership mix is not right. Because perhaps you have bosses rather than leaders. A boss orbits in his or her own orbit. They dare not be questioned and they make all the decisions. And when they cough, everybody is scampering and so forth. And bosses usually have what you call a long or a very large power distance from their subordinates. That's why in this country we have had problems with our presidents and their vice presidents. Haven't you wondered why the vice presidents are fired or they have no voice? And in fact, the trend is that the first ladies are becoming more powerful than even the vice president. You know why? It is because the power distance between the president and the vice president is too large. After all, the president is the one that appoints the vice president, unless our constitution changes, of course. But you see, if that takes place in your organization, people will be dead scared. They dare not cross your path. They dare not bring about innovation. They dare not say anything that will be against you. And you know what it's doing? It is killing you. So if you don't have strategic leadership, leadership that inspires confidence, leadership that is always looking ahead, leadership that will ensure that it brings energy within your bones to move to the next level, to improve constantly, and to bring in dissatisfaction with your present situation, then you are doomed. Strategic leadership sees and anticipates trends and things that are happening in the environment, even in their own lives. They ensure that they proactively respond so that when the crisis or the crunch arrives, you don't even see them panicking. You don't see the panic mood in their eyes or in their minds. They seem to be in total control. And they look at the future and they smile. If you read Proverbs 31, the woman of noble, the noble woman of great virtue, one of the things about that woman is that that woman is strategic. That woman is able to see things from afar. And she makes sure that she prepares. So that when hunger arrives in town, she smiles. And you know why? Because she will have already provided for her family warm clothing, food, and everything. Strategic thinking. If you don't have strategic thinkers in your organization, especially in the right places, you're going to be frustrated and frustrated and frustrated. And your organization will be a place where you'll just be grumbling and complaining. And in the end, you know what happens? All your energy is sapped and you will not make any progress. But the other cancer that we have is overtrading. When the organization becomes obese, becomes too big, sometimes it takes on too much, more than it can handle. It brings in a lot of donor money if it's in the competitive environment in the world, the business world. It commits itself to so many things. It has so many projects. It wants to do this and that at the same time, and yet it does not have the capacity. Perhaps it doesn't have the financial capacity. Perhaps it doesn't have the right structures. Perhaps it doesn't have this and that. You know what happened? The organization will grow from bad to worse. There will be donor fatigue. Donors will get tired and say, that is a good organization, but we cannot use them now. You know why? Because they are too busy and you will not get your results at the intended time and quality. If it's in the business world, you even run bankrupt. You've heard of Enron and other organizations in the West, and even in Zambia, some banks, which came with a bang. But at some point, they fizzled out from the horizon. You know why? One of the reasons is that they were overtrading. They committed themselves to more than they could handle. But an organization that grows from strength to strength is an organization that counts its men, its troops as it were, and ensures it moves in the right direction and it conquers the right amount of land and market share because it will have planned everything. The other corporation cancer that brings down organization is unresponsiveness and bureaucracy. I think you've heard of the word bureaucracy. Usually we give it a negative connotation. We think bureaucracy is evil and what and so forth. But actually when you read Weber and others, is that bureaucracy, I think it was developed maybe in France and other places, it was intended to help this complex organization function even better professionally and efficiently. But what has happened now is that bureaucracy brings about layers and layers, and it becomes slower, it becomes rigid and unresponsive. And you know what happens? There's red tape, there's corruption, and all sorts of things. Those that have power, the bureaucrats as they are called, those who work in the offices, bureau means office, those that hold offices, begin to use those offices to move their own agendas. Instead of serving the masses, they begin to serve themselves. So when bureaucracy grips your organization, that organization, chances are, it will not survive. Because you see, the external environment is changing, it's dynamic. And if you're going to be ahead of the heap, you're going to be above the heap, ahead of the pack, you must be an organization that is lean, that is agile, that is fluid, that is constantly moving, that sees where it's supposed to go, that hurtles along and uses every nerve and every strength to get to the right area. Friends, bureaucracy kills many organizations, many governments, many NGOs. I have worked for organizations that have grown from tiny organizations, but now they're very large. Oh yes, we admire them. They're good organizations, but they do not deliver as you would expect. You know what? Because they become so complex and therefore become bureaucratic. Even simple decisions have to pass through different stages and many stages, and you don't get anything. Even with email and the latest technology, there is red tape and bureaucracy. But the other organizational thing that is dysfunctional teams. Teams that don't hold together. In fact, most of the organizations have groups rather than teams. Because a team, is like they move together. They move as one block. They see the same thing. They have the same vision, same view, same emotions, same feelings about certain things. But a team that does not operate together is not a team at all. It is just a group of people working together. Well, friends, there could be other corporate cancers that bring down our organization. I just pause now and ask the question, what is it that makes your organization stagnant? What is it that is pulling your organization down? What is it that is standing in your way, you as an individual? Why are you not progressing? Why have you remained where you are? I put it to you. It could be that you have not taken or dealt with those things that bring you down. On an individual level, much more we must say that if you're going to succeed, if you're going to be in the corridors of power, if you're going to wield a lot of influence and well known out there, is that you must make sure that you deal with some of these. Look at your weaknesses, look at your strengths, and make sure that you're brutally honest and deal with those things. But much more, look at what are called core competencies. What are your strengths? Those things that you do with the greatest ease. And make sure that you strengthen in those areas. Well, friends, I think we must stop in this section for now. We are going to look at a later stage, looking at total quality management even much more. In a sense, we have covered that ground as we have been talking about it. And what is it that makes TQM not succeed? I hope you'll be there with us and you will like our discussion and make sure that you learn. Well, until we meet that time, I trust that the Lord will keep you. But make sure that you are one who deals away, who minimizes those things that will kill you, that will kill your organization. But also, you are that person who props up, who fosters, who encourages, and who builds success. Until then, until we meet in the next section, make sure you think about the things that we have said. Goodbye.